If I can get a motion for the minutes, please. For the minutes, do have a second. Without objection, the minutes will stand. This afternoon, we do have ordinances on final reading for 3 rezoning items. Any questions, comments on final read? We will then follow into text amendments on final read. Seeing no lights, moving into our park amendments. Also in final reading, no lights. We do have ordinances on first reading. We have 3 rezoning items in District 8. Councilwoman Noel, you want to hit your light for me and give me an update on what we should expect this evening, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask that the item B and C be deferred another week until August, what's that, 23rd?
Yes, ma'am. All right. And you'll make that motion at 6 o'clock.
I will.
We are ready to move on with item A?
We are ready.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Moving into resolutions, we have an appointment to the Head Start Governing Board from District 4. We have an item under fire, which we are not going to defer. You're welcome. And under human resources, we do have an employment services 4-year blanket contract. Mandy, anything to add there? I'm not seeing any lights, ma'am. So I appreciate you being here in case we did, though. And under the mayor's office, Anna Taylor to the Library Board of Directors. Under Parks and Public Works, anything we need to know there, Chairman Hester there? No, sir. Okay, if you'll turn over to your purchases for this evening. I believe we have 7 items. We have 2 RFPs. And if you'll let me know if you have any questions. I know you've had these for a few days now. I did want to take just a moment. If someone could tell us about the RFPs. Excuse me.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to answer any questions, but you have 2 RFPs in front of you, or rather the approval to issue the RFP, not the approval to award.
Sure.
But these RFPs are first, a planning consultant to help us with the siting and selection of a location for a low barrier or emergency shelter. We use them interchangeably, but there are a lot of factors to consider, and we felt that given the significant public interest in the topic, as well as the level of infrastructure required to effectively support a successful low barrier shelter, it is in the best interest of the city to onboard a external party, a planning consultant to help us understand all of the factors we need to consider when siting a shelter. The second RFP in front of you is allowing the administration to issue an RFP for the nonprofit operator of a low barrier or emergency shelter. And we will be outlining the qualifications that we are looking for, as well as the service providing expectations for that provider, and opening that up so nonprofit organizations can apply. But I'm happy to take any questions.
And I appreciate you being willing to answer questions. I am not seeing any, but I do appreciate that explanation. The low barrier shelter was in our ARP spending package. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tognopdua. If you would please turn over to your August 23rd agenda. We do have 2 special presentations. Councilwoman Hill will be making Hearst United Methodist Church 140th anniversary recognition. And then we will also have a public hearing on Area 11, the East Brainerd Plan. Karen, anything we need to know you want to add to that?
This is advertised as part of the state law requirement, just notifying that there is a plan under consideration. We had not planned to give a presentation at that time, but we can if you so choose. We've already given a presentation to council on the Area 11 plan.
Understood. This, I think, is notifying, or this is the time we'll have for the public hearing.
That's correct.
Okay.
So we'll have the presentation if there's a question, but otherwise we had not planned on presenting unless you got otherwise.
And if I understand correctly, I would ask my city attorney, but I need to set the rules, or this council needs to set the rules for the public hearing, which we will do and notice. Okay. Thank you. Moving into, we have ordinances that will fall into final reading under planning for the 23rd. Items on first reading, if you'll take a look at those under Parks and Public Works. And an item under planning. Karen, this is our height and area regulations text amendment for infill lot frontages, correct? Okay. Making sure I've got that. And then we have several very exciting right-of-way closures to consider. Okay. Resolutions under economic development, Chattanooga Flying Disc Club, and under the mayor's office, we have several appointments. If there are any questions about mayor's appointments, go ahead and hit your light. And then item J under planning, we will have the resolution to adopt the East Brainerd Area 11 plan. Under Public Works, Parks, item K, this item actually has been requested to be removed. So I want to make sure I notice that in a public meeting. The city attorney's office did ask that to be withdrawn. So we should, I've instructed that to be withdrawn. And under item L, Bill, you want to talk a little bit about that item? Under Public Works, it's the joint funding agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey. I noticed you're here, and I'd hate for you to come all the way down here and not have an opportunity to share something with us.
Thank you, Chairman. Happy to do so. This is an item that our Stormwater Division utilizes for establishing rain gauges and stream gauge meters. Some of those are used, for example, the National Weather Service uses the one on South Chickamauga Creek to be able to forecast flooding. These others are in their beginning stages, and we are hopeful that we will eventually, in cooperation with USGS, this data will get shared with the National Weather Service, and we will begin to get additional forecast information on flooding in advance of major river flooding for those areas. But they also help us whenever we also are responding to other types of flash flood issues and others in those areas. So it's a very good tool, very good information. It's for us, USGS uses and sets up these types of systems all across the country. And so this is by cooperating with them, we're able to get this very cost-effective way of being able to gather good information and work together with them.
Mr. Payne, we see this every year, correct?
Yes,
this is a reason this isn't into a year contract, because it does seem like it's annually.
It is annual. This is the way that the USGS structures all of these agreements. They do them on an annual basis.
Okay.
We'll certainly inquire with them and see if it's possible to set it up on a multi-year agreement. This is the way that they send it to us, and so we bring it forward to council
Understood.
the way they submit it to us.
Just a pure observation.
Certainly.
Thank you. Appreciate that information.
Absolutely.
If you will, council, indulge me, I'll backtrack on the public hearing. Mr. Noblet?
Yes, sir.
We have a public hearing on the 23rd on the Area 11 East Brainerd plan.
Yes, sir.
And I believe I need to set the parameters, or this council needs to set the parameters for the public hearing. How much time and
Yes, sir. How much time? And typically, y'all can limit the amount of
Okay.
time and just have people on topic to do that. And you can also limit the entire focus of the public hearing as well. So if you're going to have a portion of your meeting that you want to devote 45 minutes to an hour to, you can do that, or allow people to speak for a certain period of time. And if they stop speaking before that time, then the public hearing is over.
okay. Can you remind me, when do we need to announce the parameters for the hearing?
I would think it would be during tonight's meeting here, so the public would be able to
Okay.
hear.
Very good. Thank
Yes,
you. I'll make sure and do that. So council, if you'll indulge me again, since Phil is in the room with us, for the public hearing on the East Brainerd, I'd like to open the floor for suggestions on time length and the number of minutes for each person for the East Brainerd Area 11 plan. I'm gonna throw out a suggestion, given the feedback that I've received, and I've walked this plan through since since I think 2018. It's pretty thorough. District 4 has been very involved. I'm going to allot 30 minutes if there's no objection, with our normal 3 minutes for comments on the Area 11 plan. If there's no objections, then we can announce that at 6 o'clock. Phil?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Don't everybody jump in at once on that. Okay, 30 minutes and 3 minutes. Very good for Area 11. All right, thank you very much. Moving into future consideration. Just hit the desk. Saved, highlighted at 2:46 p.m. If you'll take a look at items for future considerations and let me know if you have any particular questions. I will add in under finance item A. I'm working on a resolution, Madam Vice Chair Dotley and I, to amend the bid ordinance to exempt the 2 churches that are in the property. It's been a point of conversation since the CBID was created, and the finance committee of the bid is fully supporting that motion as well. And you'll probably hear them discuss that on the 30th when they present to us. So I think that is and for the record, the finance committee for the bid has never actually billed the churches from day one. So I think this is a really good move. Something we tried to do at the beginning when the ordinance was created. But I'm glad to see that it will come forward and the council will have an opportunity to decide on that in the form of an amendment to that ordinance. Any other questions for future considerations? I'll give you just a second before we move into committee. Okay, seeing no questions, that will conclude today's agenda session for 3:30. Chairman Coonrod, are you ready to move into economic development? If so, I will turn the chair over to Councilwoman Coonrod. As I collect all my papers, I'm just going to slide over there. Okay.
Get my ass together. All right, if I can get an approval of the minutes.
Second.
All right, Jermaine, you ready?
Yes. So today we'll be talking about workforce development and some of the work that we do. And so if I could just get the slides up on the screen from. All right. So as many of you know, workforce development is a division or an office sort of within the Department of Economic Development. It was launched in 2018 as a response to an affordable housing and workforce development study that was conducted by the National Resource Network. That study was actually conducted in 2016 and finished in 2017. And so one of the recommendations that came from that study was launching an Office of Workforce Development within city government that could be responsive to help people raise their wages. And so remember, the affordable housing study that was done by the National Resource Network, even though it was focused on our housing inventory and housing prices, what the study found was that there were a number of people within the Chattanooga area that didn't actually make a lot of money. And so one of the ways that we could sort of deal or address our affordable housing challenges was to also help people make more income. And so one of the recommendations from that was to start an Office of Workforce Development. And so the role of the Office of Workforce Development has really sort of been twofold, but there have been other things that we've taken on that I'll talk about here momentarily. But the primary goal is to serve as a convener. So there are a number of organizations within our community that dabble or do some form of workforce development, or as it's now known, talent development and talent recruitment. And then also, because we are the city and because sometimes constituents will come to us sort of as a service provider of last resort, we do actually provide direct assistance to constituents who are seeking employment opportunities. So this is sort of the constituent profile of the constituents that we normally see through the Office of Workforce Development. They are mostly adults. They are male and female, and they are typically people who have graduated high school, and they either have not been to college, or they do have a little bit of college, but they have not earned a degree or post-secondary credential. And so most are either unemployed or between jobs, or they're underemployed, meaning they're working a job but not really making a lot of money, or they're working part-time, and they're seeking either higher wages or more rewarding work, or both. As a convener, these are some of our key partners that we typically work with. So the Tennessee College of Applied Technology here at Chattanooga State's campus, in addition to Chattanooga State, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, the Southeast Tennessee Development District, the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. And so we typically work with these partners on a pretty regular basis, especially the Chamber and Chattanooga State and UTC. And then what we also do is every constituent who comes to us for help also has to complete an assessment form. That assessment form is basically like an intake form. And so we also discover and see that there are also constituents that need wraparound services like childcare assistance, transportation help. Maybe there's some food or housing insecurity, or they're not necessarily interested in finding a job that pays a higher wage, but they're interested in trying to figure out how to go back to school, and they just don't know how to start that process. They just don't know how, like, what's the first step to getting a FAFSA completed, or how to enroll in a local collegiate program. And so some of the wraparound service providers that we now work with include the Partnership for Families, Children, and Adults, Helen Ross McNabb, United Way, Northside Neighborhood House, the city's own Office of Family Empowerment, and Goodwill. And so as we have gotten deeper and deeper into the world of workforce development over the past few years, it has become more and more obvious to us that we have to have these strong relationships with the wraparound service providers, because so many of the constituents who come to us, they don't just need a job, they also need some wraparound support services to help them be successful and stay at the job and keep the job. These are some of so we track what we call referrals. So a referral is when we connect a constituent to either an interview, or we connect, and the interview could either be for a specific job, or it can be for an educational opportunity. So in 2019, we did 247 referrals. Obviously in 2020 with COVID, well, that was the start of the COVID pandemic. So there was a spike in people who came to us for help. So it increased to 408 referrals. And then between 2021 and up until now, we've done about 338 referrals. And so typically what happens with the referral is that requires lots and lots of contact with the constituent to get them to the point of sort of trying to do a soft handoff to an employer or education partner for the next steps. It requires countless phone calls, text messages, sometimes emails, sometimes in-person meetings and interviews as well. Some of our employer partners where we've done most of our referrals to include for customer service positions at Blue Cross Blue Shield, for factory and warehouse positions at Volkswagen, factory and warehouse positions at Gestamp. We've referred a number of people into to Vision Hospitality. And then we're also working with Steam Logistics in a slightly different way, which I'll talk about here in a minute. And then we've also referred some customer service folks to Erlanger Medical Center, and then to folks to Randstad. Randstad obviously is a company that doesn't really act as a direct employer. They typically are an employment service provider. So they typically will take people and place them into other full-time jobs. It has been important for our team to also build relationships with employment placement services, because in some cases, those employment placement services also can get you the entry to the full-time or another major employer that may rely on employment services. In addition to the support that we do on the referral side and the education side, we also help to coordinate job fairs. So this is a list of job fairs that we've worked on over the past year. So we've got a job fair coming up on the 19th for Blue Care. And then we helped and worked with Volkswagen to support their 3-day job fair back in July. There was a job fair over at the Bend back in February. The Lookouts had a hiring fair also in February. The Reserve at Mountain Pass, which is building over 200 units of income-restricted housing in Alton Park, actually wanted to hold a job fair back in February that we did. That was for them to hire permanent maintenance workers that could work and be employed at the housing development once it's built. We also assisted with the Collab Startup Week job fair back in October and the Coca-Cola Career Fair back in September. We are also very much excited to work with and to support the Chamber in its work with some of our major employers to establish work-based learning programs. So Novonix, which of course was approved for a pilot last summer, now has a Future Ready Institute at Lookout Valley High School. We're very excited about that in terms of helping to make sure that our high school students, when they graduate high school, that they have opportunities to come take advantage of these jobs that Novonix is creating. And then STEAM Logistics recently announced a work-based learning and apprenticeship program at Brainerd High School. So we're very excited about that as well. Notably, both Novonix and STEAM are pilot recipients. And so as part of the language in the pilot agreements that you all approve, it does ask that companies make their best faith efforts to help us on the employment side and to help us source local talent. And so this is the way that these two companies are choosing to pursue that. I want to highlight Mr. or Colonel Shinwari here. Colonel Shinwari was a pilot in the Afghan military who flew C-130s in Afghanistan. Some of you may have seen his story in the Times Free Press a few months ago. He was relocated to Chattanooga, he and his family. And in fact, I believe he is now a resident of District 4.
He's my next door neighbor.
There you go. So you
2
can
houses
get
away.
there you go, good deal. And so as part of his resettlement here in the Chattanooga area, our workforce development team helped him and his several members of his family to find jobs in the area. I believe that he's now working for Volkswagen. I'll have to double check that. But again, he was when we were called to assist him, obviously a job was not the only thing he needed. He also needed help getting power connected to his home. So we called EPB. There were some other things that his family needed. And so we're in supporting people who are in need of workforce development services. Again, the need for wraparound support is essential. And so as we go forward and as we know that we're going to continue to work with people who need wraparound services, working with the nonprofits in our area is going to be extremely important. And then adding organizations like Project Return that we may not have necessarily had a long history with will also be super important and extremely valuable. And then I also want to announce that as of yesterday, we have a brand new director of workforce development strategy, Mr. Quentin Lawrence. He joined our team from Hope for the Inner City. And so Mr. Lawrence is our new director of workforce development strategy. He will actually be joining us tonight for the city council meeting at 6 p.m. And we're very happy about the work that he will do and look forward to working with him to get him started. One of his big priorities will be making sure that we are also focused on the target clusters that were identified in the Chattanooga Climbs Plan to ensure that we are really sort of creating big workforce development strategies around those targeted clusters. And so with that, I will take any questions that people may have.
Okay. Chairman Lefford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You touched on this a little bit, but when you were talking about our pilot recipients,
Yes.
can you dive a little bit deeper in that relationship? Because I was hoping you would tell us there's a pipeline or a direct link.
Yes. So in the past, where because we have not necessarily in past pilot agreements made the workforce conversation a robust part of the conversation around pilot agreements, by making sure that we're now making it a part of the negotiation with a company for a pilot and asking companies to address it in their pilot agreement, companies are finding, or at least these two companies have found ways to address the workforce issues here in ways that make sense for them, which is helpful for us. We have a labor shortage right now, and so it is also to the company's benefit to ensure that they are also doing things proactively to sort of guarantee that they're going to have a workforce for the future. If you talk to our friends at the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development, there are hundreds of thousands of fewer people in our workforce today than there were, say, a couple of years ago. And it has become very, very challenging for employers to source the talent and to source the people that they need for their jobs. And many of you have businesses, run businesses, and so you understand that there are some real workforce challenges out there. However, our job is, from the city's perspective, is to continue to help people strive for better opportunities.
And is there another branch into our public safety agencies as well, with fire and police specifically?
That is an opportunity for us that we need to work on. And so, candidly, I know that both the fire department and the police department would benefit greatly from having a pipeline. And so that's an area where that we need to work on developing in partnership with them.
Okay, great. I'd love to see that strengthened or created if it's not there.
Yep,
All right, thanks.
absolutely.
That's all I have. Thank you, Jermaine. Thank you,
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Jermaine, I'm sure you probably know what my follow-up questions is gonna be. Presentation was great. I already know that's a smoke screen. So we just gonna be honest with each other. How many people have you actually helped to get employed? I understand the referrals. Yeah, I see the look, Chris. It's okay. But how many people that you referred actually became employed?
I'll need to follow up with you to get that specific question answered because they've gone to different employers. So I'll follow up with you.
Okay, and then also with the work that Mr. Harwood, is he still doing that work of workforce development, or is he just still sitting idle?
Mr. Harwood is I don't want to address personnel, but he still works for our team. He is now a senior project manager in our workforce development office.
Okay, and then the people that the constituents I'm really concerned about are those that may not be connecting with this department. So how are you reaching out to those individuals, like the ones that's making less than 15,000 in the west side, or those living in the villages, those that are living in the emeralds, those individuals, the ones that are on assistance with the Department of Human Services? So how are you connecting with those individuals? What are you doing?
We do. So some of those individuals will come from social service providers where they're getting help already. So whether or not they are already working with Partnership or the Helen Ross McNabb Center or First Things First, they may already be working with a social service provider, and then that social service provider may contact us for help with job assistance. So we do work with those individuals. Some of them we also do, as I noted in the presentation, we do have a number of people who, will contact us directly. And so we certainly will help anybody that comes to us. In addition to that, we've also been able to support and work with the Office of Family Empowerment on the Impact Program, which of course is staged in the West Side and was started on the West Side in College Hill Courts. And so that program obviously engaged people who lived in the West Side community and continues to do so. And so we've supported that program and worked alongside the Office of Family Empowerment to help them with that program too.
All right, anybody else got any questions? We'll get together outside because the presentation just not working for me. And so we'll just get together to address my additional concerns.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And thank you, Jermaine.
Yes, ma'am.
Kiana, we'll go ahead and go finish through the agenda. If you'll read next week's agenda 7 resolutions.
A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an amendment to standard premises using agreement and agreement to exercise option to renew in substantially the form attached with Chattanooga Flying Disc Club, Inc. for the term through June 30th, 2023.
All right, any questions?
No questions.
All right, no questions. Thank you, Kiana. And I guess we'll adjourn to our attorney-client
We have attorney-client conference.
in the conference room. All right, thanks.
Don't be afraid.
I know, right?
I'll see you too.
Well,